This is a 2023 Toyota Highlander, the 4th generation mid-size 3-row crossover SUV that's been with us since the 2020 model year. But new for 2023 is a new, smaller engine under the hood and a new, larger digital screen for the instrument cluster. By the way, this is not the hybrid. The hybrid does receive the new instrument cluster screen and other updates like that, but it's a largely carryover powertrain from 2022 and previously. Speaking of, I did drive a 2021 Toyota Highlander hybrid, and I'll go ahead and put a link for it right up there. And in actuality, I already drove this car as well, the 2023 Highlander with the new engine. But I did so in Nashville, Tennessee as part of a Toyota Drive program when I was driving the Toyota Crown, and it was very, very brief. But if you're at all interested, I have a link to that right there as well, and I'll have links to both of those reviews in the description. Oh, and speaking of things that this isn't, this also isn't the 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander, which is a bigger version of this car. I have not yet had the chance to drive that one. I hope to soon, but I did get a chance to talk with the chief engineer of that car, Craig Payne, and we had a really nice conversation. I'll go ahead and put a link to that up there as well, and also in the description. Okay, back to this Highlander right here. This one is an all-wheel drive platinum trim painted in cypress, which makes it the top of 6 trims offered above the L, LE, XLE, XSE, and limited trims. The base price for a 2023 front-wheel drive Toyota Highlander L is $37,955. Going all the way up to an all-wheel drive Platinum increases that price dramatically, starting at $52,760. And my test car included several accessories and cost $54,532. Okay. With that, now is a good time to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. The 4th generation Toyota Highlander arrived in 2019 as a 2020 model year and largely carries on today. This green color, which Toyota calls Cypress, is new for 2023, but what's under the hood and inside are both more important. Let's take a closer look. All this structure largely remains the same as it has done for a while, but I think it's a pretty clean look. You know, nice pattern in the grille here, and the grille itself is not huge and overwrought like so many grills we see today. This is a nice polished metal here, this chrome piece that cuts through it right here, and I do think they put some nice sculpting in the hood above as well. So it's a nice little look. Certainly unoffensive, I think you could say, but while the hood looks lovely, what's underneath it is what I'm much more interested in. There it is, a 4-cylinder engine mounted transversely down there. It is sitting fairly low. That helps keep center of gravity down. And it is reasonably well tucked back considering that it is transversely mounted. The center line of the axle is just in front of this piece right here. So the vast majority of the engine is in front of the front axle, so that is going to be a healthy amount of weight on the front axle, and we have the battery up front as well, so this is going to be a heavier front end, but I'm willing to guess a lot of people do not buy this car for its handling prowess anyway, so maybe that's not the biggest deal. Oh, and real quick, windshield washer fluid reservoir right there. Looking at the car in profile, you can see that it is actually quite long overall with a relatively small wheelbase, decent amount of overhang in front and in back. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check that out and let you know that I have a lot more information in the description. There are a couple things to look at. We do have a nice polished metal piece that runs at the base of the windows here, but then it's just black up top. And we also have a couple of accessories. These running boards down here, those are $599. We also have these crossbars on the roof rack right here. Those are $375. And if you do intend on putting things up on the roof, like a kayak or something like that, sure, definitely helpful. But this will hurt your fuel economy on the interstate and make it more noisy as well. Something to be aware of. Also, we do have these guys right here. A little hard to see here. I'll open the door. These little things right here, these are door edge guards. Helps protect the lip of the door at the end. They cost $130. I do like the polished metal for the roof rack right here. I think that's a nice touch. And I think it generally has, again, a pretty traditional, unoffensive two-box shape as SUVs go. And, you know, a couple little details like this tiny little fin in the taillight and how the taillight itself does protrude out a bit does give you a little bit of interesting detail to look at. But yeah, this is a solid, if a touch typical, mid-size SUV. Standard wheel size on the Highlander is an 18-inch wheel. But once you get to the XSE or higher trims, you get a 20-inch wheel. And depending on which trim you get, there are different wheel designs and wheel finishes, but they're all 20 inches. And the Platinum here, we are rolling on 235/55 R20 all-season tires. And that's on the front and on the back. Looking at the car in the back, you do see how big these taillights really are. They extend well into the side profile of the car, but then very close to the center of the car as well. So they take up a lot of space. You also have this fairly pronounced roof-mounted spoiler on top, which I think is a bit much if I'm honest, but I do like this gray color here to contrast the green and this chrome piece right here just beneath the floor of your cargo space. And this is where you get to remind yourself that it is a Platinum all-wheel drive Highlander. Generally speaking, just like the rest of the car, I would call it unoffensive. However, I do think this is a clever little detail. Hey, you've got this molded in little piece for these lenses right here. That's one nice little touch. Also, one thing I do appreciate, no fake moldings, fake anything to imply some fancy exhaust. We just have a single tailpipe down here, out of the way, just as it should be. So, how do you get to that cargo floor? You don't need your hands. It does have a kick sensor down low. And lifting the tailgate reveals 16 cubic feet behind the third row, which, you know, is adequate, we could say. I don't know if we can say much else. Underneath it is a little bit more space and equipment for your spare tire changing. But the good news is that if you need more than 16 cubic feet of space and do not need to carry anybody in the third row, that is quite easy to do. And by flipping those two levers, you now have 48 cubic feet of cargo space. And because this is the Platinum trim, room for 4 with the captain's chairs. And if 48 cubic feet of cargo space isn't enough, yes, it is easy to get more. It actually takes a couple of pulls for each one of the captain's chairs, but that's easy enough to do, and doing so reveals 84 cubic feet of cargo space and room for you and a passenger. And I would think plenty of room for my bike, but let's find out. All right, I'm being a little bit daring and not moving the camera. Camera is definitely making this a little harder. But oh yeah, room to spare. Super easy, plenty of space, and if you don't have a camera with a tripod mounted, even easier. You don't need the roof rack or a trailer hitch to carry a bike. You can carry it in the cargo space, no trouble at all. Let's take a look inside. Okay, of course you can open this with the button right there. And as you can see, my bike is back out, but I wanted to quickly show you how easy it is to fold the seats back up. Just pull on this lever here and it goes up. And then once it's up, you can choose between 4 different levels for the seat back. This is the most upright. And then all the way down here. So if I put the other chair up and leave it at its most upright, you can see the difference. It's pretty healthy. So the third row can lounge if it wants to. And this is easy to flip up right here for the headrest. The second row also has adjustment features. You can slide it fore or aft this way to give the second row more leg room and then rob the third row. And you can also adjust the seat back as well. And this just bends it down. You have to fold this down here and then fold it down here. Also though, hit this button and it'll slide forward to give you access to the third row. The third row, as you can see, the seat bottoms are very, very low, and there's not a lot of legroom if there's enough legroom for the second row, so you'll have to know that it is just for kids. The second row, on the other hand, is plenty comfortable for adults, especially with these captain's chairs. As you can see, the second row is all the way back, but when it's all the way back, the seat bottoms are nice and high, so I have good thigh support. I also have at least 6 inches of knee room right here, and well under a 90-degree bend in my knees as well. I also have headroom. Just barely, but I do have headroom. And that is despite having this panoramic moonroof right here, which is courtesy of going with the Platinum trim. Also courtesy of the Platinum trim are heated seats for the second row, but standard across the lineup is 3-zone climate control. You also have a couple of USB ports right here and AC power right next to that. There are a couple of cup holders down low and a little bit of storage behind that, and each second row passenger gets its own armrest. What luxury! But there's even more luxury because we also have shades. Okay, to the front. You have this nice illuminated little scuff plate right here. That's nice. And we do have these nice leather seats to look at as well. I think it's a nice color, and to be honest, I'm just glad it's not black like so many things are. But chunks of the interior are indeed black, like the dashboard and the steering wheel and most of the door trim. And you do get the typical controls right here on the door, including 2-position seat memory right here. And you do have both tilt and telescope adjustment. It is done manually right here. To the left of the steering wheel, you have a few controls here, different camera views, the high beams, the lift gate, and heated steering wheel control. Plus, this is an undervalued, underrated thing. We also have a nice little tray beneath that. This can be useful. Push button start is right over here. And that brings to life the 2.4 liter Turbo 4 and also illuminates our new for 2023 fully digital 12.3 inch instrument cluster right here. Now this is standard equipment on the limited and platinum trims. Also with the platinum trim, you get a 10-inch color head-up display right there. An 8-inch screen is standard on the Highlander, but because this is a platinum trim, also true on the limiteds, you get a 12.3-inch center console touchscreen right here. And this larger screen also has Toyota Assistant. Hey Toyota.
How can I help you?
Set the temperature to 68 degrees.
Setting the driver's temperature to 68 degrees.
It's time to cool down. Regardless of which screen you do get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That is a nice feature. But because this is a platinum trim, also true on the limiteds, we get both heated and ventilated seats for the front row. And also here are your first 2 of the 3-zone climate controls. Also new for 2023, they moved the wireless smartphone charger up here so it's really easy to access, which is nice. Just beneath that, we have 3 USB ports, 2 Type-Cs and 1 standard, and a little tray below that. We have a very standard looking printer beneath that, a couple of cup holders, and all sorts of different types of drive modes. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Looking up, this is another Toyota accessory, a dash cam right there. We do have a rear view mirror here that does double as a screen for a rear camera. And we do have a nice glass to keep an eye on rear passengers. And above that, options for our panoramic moonroof, including this electric privacy panel right here. Lovely. All right, drive modes. There are just 3 drive modes if you want to be strict about it in terms of what they call drive modes. You have Eco, Normal, and Sport. And if you press this, it shows up here, Equal, Normal, Sport. But we also have this sand and mud and rock and dirt settings for the all-wheel drive system. So rock and dirt gives us this little graphic right here. Sand and mud gives us this little graphic right here. And if you see here, you just push it back to go to normal. Over here, we also have a snow mode, and we also have hill descent control, and here's where we can turn off stability control and traction control. So there's actually a lot of different ways that you can manipulate the powertrain and the drivetrain to suit your driving needs and or wants. But officially, only 3 drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. I imagine we'll spend most of our time in Normal, but maybe, just maybe, we'll spend a little time in Sport. But let's get back to the drive. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. There are 2 powertrains available on the Toyota Highlander, one hybrid, one non. The hybrid powertrain, as I mentioned, is effectively carryover and pretty much the same as the 2021 model year Toyota Highlander hybrid that I tried. If you're at all curious, definitely go and check that one out. But the non-hybrid powertrain is now a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine instead of a naturally aspirated V6. It is a 2.4-liter turbo engine, and it makes 265 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. The dual overhead cam 3.5-liter V6 actually made a healthy amount more horsepower, 295 horsepower, and revved up a little higher to do it. But it gains 47 pound-feet of torque compared to the V6, and it makes its peak torque 3,000 RPM earlier than before, 1,700 RPM instead of 4,700 RPM. So you could call that trade-off ultimately kind of even-steven if you want, but critically, and probably the reason Toyota made this change ultimately, is that this turbocharged 2.4-liter runs a lot cleaner. It produces as much as 50% fewer nitrous oxide emissions and other emissions, and with the ever more restrictive emission standards that the manufacturers have to meet, it probably wasn't anything other than necessary to change this engine out, to be totally honest. Another benefit of changing to this smaller displacement engine is you do get better fuel economy, but not by that much. I'll go over those figures in just a moment. What stays the same is that we use an 8-speed automatic transmission, which gives a plenty wide ratio range and shifts smoothly and quickly when it needs to. And as I mentioned, this one is in fact all-wheel drive, but front-wheel drive is available on every single trim, so you can choose which way you want to go. And if you go front-wheel drive with the Platinum trim, that would save you $1,950. And generally speaking, I think this is a good powertrain. I've driven different versions of this 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder in other Toyota and Lexus products, and in every one I've tried, it feels stout and powerful and delivers good response. But we are giving up a little bit of linearity in the feel going from the naturally aspirated V6 to this one. It just has like tiny little surges in the power, and there are moments, especially when you're in the lower revs, where you do feel a little bit of turbo lag. It is not severe by any means, but it is there. It is noticeable, especially when you're comparing it to a naturally aspirated engine. I think the vast majority of people, the vast majority of the time, would find it completely reasonable and enjoy the benefits of a little bit improved fuel economy and the peace of mind, I guess, that you're emitting fewer emissions as well. And in those times when you are in a hurry, once you get the kick down, it does have pretty good response and pretty good pull. It's just really not bad. But we mentioned fuel economy. Fuel economy does improve by a little bit. You now get 21 miles to the gallon in the city, 28 miles to the gallon on the highway, 24 combined. That is the all-wheel drive Platinum model that does that. If you instead go front-wheel drive, that improves to 22 in the city, 29 on the highway, 25 combined. And compared to the 3.5-liter V6, that all-wheel drive system did 20 miles to the gallon in the city, 27 on the highway, 23 combined, and front-wheel drive versions did 21 miles to the gallon in the city, 29 miles to the gallon on the highway, 24 combined. Okay, fuel economy numbers are indeed very important, as are emission standards as well, but none of that is nearly as much fun as accelerating. Of course I had to test it. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. Try this new engine out. I do have the Highlander in this sport driving mode, and why not? I'll turn off the traction control too. All right, let's give it a shot. Okay, coming to a complete stop. Bit of brake torque. About 2,200 RPM off the brake. Oh, wow, okay. Interesting. All right, pretty good quick shifts there. Pretty good pull. Yeah, good acceleration, good stout acceleration. Once we get moving, there was a little bit of a weird hesitation there right at the beginning. That kind of struck me as odd. There was this like rev and then touch of a hesitation, then we got moving. But once we got moving, it was good, stout, consistent pull. It felt strong, and yeah, good motor. Plenty to pull this Highlander along. How does this Highlander ride? How does it feel on the road? Well, generally it feels quite good. The seats are nice and supportive, nice and comfortable. We have a nice high seat bottom in both the first and second rows to provide plenty of thigh support. We have lots of leg room. I have good shoulder room, good elbow room. I do pinch it just a little bit here on the door, but that's easy to work around. And that's true for the second row as well. I found the second row very comfortable. I was very pleased with that. And the ride is absolutely lovely. Plenty soft and plenty compliant, absolutely. And generally, the Toyota personal assistant works well as well. You saw me use that during the walk around. So yeah, I find this a completely easy and comfortable car to be in. All of these things are not only true on roads like this, but also on the interstate. Yes, I tested it there as well as played with Toyota Safety Sense 2.5 Plus. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. See how this Highlander feels on the open road. We do have Toyota Safety Sense 2.5 Plus, so that includes things like radar cruise control, lane tracing assist, which is lane centering and all this kind of stuff. So we'll give that a try, and also just see how it feels generally in terms of road and wind noise and general comfort. All right, let's see how it goes. Okay, cruise control is set. We're going 75 miles an hour to go with traffic. At that speed, this 2.4 liter four-cylinder is going under 2,000 RPM. Credit that 8-speed gearbox, but also credit the low-end torque that it provides, that it can handle those lower revs with no trouble. We do have all the safety systems on, and when they're on, we also have a nice little graphic on the instrument cluster, so I'd like to briefly show you that. As you can see, we've got us in the center, and then we're kind of surrounded by blue. The blue on either side indicates lane, and then the blue in the back is distance. So that is the shortest allowable distance. So we have the car in front of us, and as you can see, that is that short distance. So it's a nice little healthy graphic to give you a better sense of what the car is seeing. We do have lane tracing assist, as I mentioned, and we are going through a subtle curve right now, so I'll take my hands off the wheel. And as you can see, it continues to track us right in the center of this subtle curve. Lane tracing assist works very well. I'm always quite pleasantly surprised every time I get lane tracing assist, so that's always nice to have. Generally speaking, this car is reasonably comfortable. The seats are actually quite comfortable, and I've got the ventilated seats on right now, so I'm keeping nice and cool. There is a little bit more wind noise than I'd like, but I think, honestly, most of what I'm hearing are those crossbars at the top mounted on the roof rack. As I mentioned in the walk around, those will definitely contribute to wind noise, and there's no exception here. On the other hand, road noise is quite good, and generally this is a really well isolated cabin. I don't think it's quite as good as the latest generation, brand new 4th generation Honda Pilot, but it is very close. And I think it's better than the Honda Pilot when it comes to pure ride. This is tuned just a little bit more softly, so it floats over bumps and heaves in the road with absolutely no trouble at all, where the Honda might just feel a little bit harsh by comparison. Overall, I would say this is a very reasonable road trip car. Yes, you can tow in the Toyota Highlander. You can tow up to 5,000 pounds. That is unchanged compared to the 3.5 liter V6 models. Basically, things continue as they did before. The Toyota hybrid models cannot tow as much. They're rated to tow 3,500 pounds. Still decent, but limited when you start getting into campers and boats and those kinds of toys. So, what do we think of this 2023 Toyota Highlander with its brand new engine? I think it's completely reasonable. I totally understand Toyota's need to keep up with the times, to stay ahead of the ever more restrictive emission standards, and if this 2.4 liter turbocharged engine does it, then fine. It's nice that you have more than 300 pound-feet of torque to play with, and the 8-speed transmission has a good set of gear ratios and a generally wide ratio range to work with to give that engine plenty of flexibility for daily use. I do wish the engine were a tiny bit more linear in its power delivery, and like I said, it's a little bit of a bummer that you feel moments of lag, but again, these are just minor little quibbles when you compare the car as a whole. And otherwise, this is a very useful, practical machine to be in, and comfortable too. So this is for the buyer that wants something to stay comfortable in, to stay calm in, and get pretty decent fuel economy while they do it, and don't feel a huge need to put adults in the third row. This is not an exciting SUV. This is not the type of thing that flares up your senses or gets you excited about the day. But at the exact same time, that makes this a more calming, more tranquil experience. And if you have a busy and stressful life, maybe that's exactly what you're looking for. I'm Raman Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please let me and everyone else know by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so helps me out a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're looking for a vehicle like the Toyota Highlander, another one to check out is the all new for 2023 4th generation Honda Pilot. That is distinctly different from the Highlander. It is a little bit bigger, and it does still have a V6, but it also has a lot of comforts and a massive amount of space inside. And I've done a whole bunch of reviews by now. Something's gonna pop up next to me. Hopefully it's something you're interested in, and if you do end up watching it, I definitely hope you like it. Okay, goodbye for now.